Welcome back to another episode of the Education Corner podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today we are speaking to Mr. Alastair Gloag, the headmaster of St. Christina's School, which is a Catholic primary school in central London. We discuss with him the ethos of St. Christina's, the entry points, the facilities that they have being a school in central London, the environmental initiatives at the school, and much more. So keep listening.
I'm thrilled to meet you, Alastair, and we're very much looking forward to hearing about St. Christina's. And I think I'll begin with my first question. Do tell us about the ethos of St. Christina's and what characteristics you are aiming to develop in the children.
Oh, well, good morning, and thank you for your invitation to talk to you. The ethos of St. Christina's, the characteristics that we aim to develop in the children, we have three areas that we look at, and there's three things that we talk about here. The first thing is that we're into growing children. And when we say growing children, we're looking at them as academics, but also as people. They have feelings, they have all that potential for growth into a wonderful adult. And so therefore, it's not just about learning subjects, it's also about learning the values, learning about ways in which we can interact with the world, and learning to have that big horizon view, as well as that more close sort of view on life that you sometimes just get through just absolute study and focus on textbooks. So we're looking to grow children who are resilient, children who are robust, children who know the difference between right and wrong, children who have compassion, children who, around our mantra of love your neighbour as yourself, really do think about others around them. So that's the first thing, we're growing children. The second thing that we obviously want them to be is academically as sharp as they can be. And we want to see every child develop relative to their ability in as much as, to the extent that they can, to the absolute maximum extent they can. So therefore they are at 11 when they leave our school, the very best version of themselves. And that's not just, again, in the academic sphere. We want them to buy into all sorts of clubs and activities so they have lots of experiences. And through those experiences, develop all sorts of different talents and abilities and passions. Very few children, when you ask them when they're adults, say that the thing they remember is their maths lesson. What they do remember, though, is that residential trip to Yorkshire where they went to the beach, and they remember the sports teacher who took them on various competitions and the school fixtures and things like that. So it's a really important part of a child's development to have those opportunities. And the third thing we talk about is about being future facing. We need to look ahead in the lives of these children. And these children are walking into a world which is very, very high tech. For us, this is the future. For them, this is the reality. So for us, we must position our school as being future facing. So there's a big, heavy emphasis on the STEM, technology, and all the different things that we think the children will need to be able to survive in a modern world. When I came into my career many years ago, I thought I'd be a teacher. And I am, towards the 30th year of my career, a teacher. I think many children in the future will have many, many different careers. So I think it's absolutely essential that even at this stage of their career in prep school, they're learning to be flexible, they're learning to be adaptable, they're learning skills for learning that keep them elastic and fresh for the whole of their career. Because I think the world in the future, which is for them their present, is going to demand that. It's not good enough just to be good at Latin anymore. You've got to be adaptable. You've got to be able to apply that. You've got to be able to discuss. You've got to be able to work collaboratively. You've got to be able to adapt. You've got to be able to go from teaching in the classroom to teaching online all of a sudden for a whole term. It's a different world that they're all going into. So those three things, growing children, that development of that value, that character, that academic performance, and finally to be future facing.
Yeah, I agree. Can you explain to me the main entry points, St. Christina's? We've noticed that it was once all girls, but certain years are now co-ed.
Well, I'm going to correct you there.
Is that right?
St. Christina's has never been all girls. So it's always been a co-educational school. But that's all right, because I think many people do think that. And the reason they think that was because boys traditionally came to St Christina's only until they were 7. So the entry points for the school are generally to the nursery at 3 or into the reception at 4. So those are the main entry points. We do have occasional places in other year groups, and we do therefore take children when those become available. But the main entry points are in reception and nursery. So what of the 7+, you might say? You're in London and lots of schools talk about the 7+. Well, we are very happy to entertain any child who wishes to enter the school at 7+ if we've got space for them. But we don't work as a school towards the 7+. We think that children, particularly when they're young, are possibly over-assessed. And we do have to work towards the 11+, the sort of transition point. And so obviously we have a programme for that, but we tend not to work towards the 7+, and we certainly don't entertain the 4+, which I think is probably a little bit of an artificial creation to try and create a selection process around 4-year-olds, where actually I think that's a little bit too early to do that. So yes, we have been mainly girls in the upper part of the school for many years, but you're right. 3 years ago, the school made the decision to become fully co-educational. The reasons for that are many, but we as a head and we as a school and governing body, we believe very much in the co-educational experience. And the model of 7+ for boys was very much an antiquated model that sort of harked back to a traditional sort of prep school format of the 7 to 13 phase being the next step for boys. That model has broken down many, many years ago. So you're right, 4 or 5 years ago, the school was challenged. Would it be a girls' school? Would it continue as it was? Or would it like to be, fully co-educational? And I'm really pleased to say that the governing body at that time decided fully co-educational was the way forward, because, it's just the right thing to do, particularly when the children are at primary age in a prep school.
Obviously, you're a central London school, but you do have quite extensive facilities for a school in the heart of London. What do you feel the advantages are of attending a school in London?
Well, the advantages of living in London, are many of the advantages we enjoy. It's just so much here, isn't there? We are within a spit's distance of London Zoo, just to give you the first heads up. So we have an arrangement whereby the children are able to go to London Zoo just about as often as they like, and we book and we're able to go. But we're surrounded by wonderful parks. So we have Primrose Hill next to us and Regent's Park next to us. So I'm able to say we have sports day in Regent's Park, and we're able to, where we don't want to use our own site for some activities for PE, we are able to break out onto the grassy spaces that are around us. It's only a 2-minute walk. So, being in the position we are is absolutely wonderful. St John's Wood itself is quiet. The streets are leafy, they're wide, most of the children walk to school, all sorts of advantages on the outside. But within the school, yeah, you're right, we're lucky. We've got really good size playgrounds. We've got space that, mean that we can actually do quite a bit of the PE that we want to on site without, if we don't want to, going outside to do that. And it is unusual in a school in our position to have quite that amount of outside space. And I will say that we have plans that are afoot, and that's going to actually increase that facility. So by July, we will start doing a little bit of a build on the back of the school. Not only will that give us 4 more classrooms, but it will give us 2 new outdoor learning spaces. So the outdoor learning spaces and facilities we have around the EYFS will then extend into Key Stage 1, and even for the senior years at the top of the school, an area at the top of the school will be an outdoor learning space too for that. So there's lots of enhancements to the facilities, the music departments, the sports departments, all of that's there. So we are jolly lucky. And also, prep school, it's great to have things like our science lab and IT suite. So we have some lovely facilities, but we are graced with being in London. We can go to the museums easy. We can have adventures down to Westminster Cathedral if we want to go down there to have a visit there. We can go where we like, and it's just so close. So no, I think there's huge advantages. Really, really good.
St Christina's is a Catholic school. Is religion an important part of the school life, or could you describe an average day at the school, kind of?
Yes, of course. I mean, I suppose I talk more about us being a Catholic school as it's our sort of like it's the water we swim in. So we like being Catholic school. We like being a school that declares that it has a set of values in that sense. We say a prayer at the beginning of the day, and we're grateful. We say grace at lunchtime, and again, the children are thinking in terms of we're grateful for what we have. We have mass once a week for the children in the older year groups, and that's a wonderful opportunity just to have a bit of peace and quiet at the end of the week. The children sing, they have the opportunity to stand up and perform, and to grow in confidence in the sort of leadership sort of things that we would like all of the children to sort of to get involved in. But I just embrace the whole sort of ethos, really, because at the heart of what we want the children to take away from our school is that mantra, love your neighbour as yourself. And it's about having the eyes on the horizon with regard to other people. It's developing confidence to know what you think about the world, about politics, about a question in history or English or whatever. Is for you to develop the skills and confidence to have your own ideas, and then to be able to discuss those with others, decide that you want them, you don't want, you want to change your ideas, you don't want to change your ideas. It's to have the resilience and confidence to be able to know where you in your life fit into the world. I suppose when you say you're a Catholic school, we as adults can hark back to what that might have meant in the 80s and 90s. Whatever it meant in the 80s and 90s, for me now, there's no agenda that children come here and become a Catholic, but we are a Catholic school. We do put gratitude, compassion, and care for others front and centre. So I would hope children will come through this school, and we have children from all religions coming through this school, and they practice their religion, and they are not in any way wrong-footed by the fact that we are a Catholic school. We're celebrating today the fact that it's the beginning of Eid, and we have been mindful of the fact that for the last couple of weeks, Ramadan has been celebrated. One of our girls has done a little recording of herself explaining what Ramadan means and what that means within her family, and we've been able to share that with the other children. And we're hoping, because obviously we've given her permission to be off today and tomorrow for Eid, exceptionally, obviously, because it's an important religious festival. We want to honour that. But I would say that when she comes back, she'll be doing another little video and telling us all about Eid as well. So the point is, the school is entirely inclusive. We have children from all religions, but this is our flavour. I don't think anybody would ever be able to object to the values that we want to instill in the children. No. And certainly it's not within my remit or anybody else's remit to try and persuade a child to have a particular set of beliefs. That's not my job. My job, however, is to encourage the children to grow up within the values that we believe are helpful. And the parents who come to us with their children obviously agree with those values because they place them here.
I think it's interesting to parents say that it's not an exclusively Catholic. I think in days gone by, you had to, attend church and know the local vicar, and it's quite different now.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things I would say is independent Catholic schools are probably a different kettle of fish to maintained Catholic schools. So independent Catholic schools tend to not necessarily be so exclusive, simply because their admissions criteria is generally broader. I would say probably about 55% of our families are active Catholics or nominal Catholics. And beyond that, I'd say we have lots of children with an Orthodox background. We have many children who are practicing Muslims. We have Hindus and Sikhs within the school, and we have families who declare as having no faith. But one thing that we do ask is that everybody comes together. We don't step out of assembly just because there's going to be a prayer at the beginning if we have a different faith. What I say to the children is, I'm going to say a prayer, and you see that as part of your education. This is how one group of people might exercise their beliefs. You're well within your right to maybe say a prayer in a different way in your head. And therefore we're able to, I think it's really important, most important thing is the children are all together and they're all a family. And that glue is that we're all a very strong community that loves one another. I think the minute people step out, then you've got division. So why has that person never come to assembly? Why does that person, this or that? It then just creates a fracture. So at this age, particularly, we stay together as a community.
We noticed that Spanish is very much on your curriculum, which is slightly unusual. It tends to more traditionally be the Latin and French. I speak Spanish, but is there a reason for this? Is it just an extra option, or?
No. Lots of reasons, and they're all rooted in deep consideration. So the first thing I would say is my background is not exclusively prep schools. For most of my career, I've taught in 3 to 18 schools, so in schools where there's been both prep and a senior school setting. In the time that I have been in leadership as a head and a deputy, I've noticed there's been a very strong trend towards Spanish, particularly at senior school level. I think French is there, but it is not necessarily a growing subject at senior level. It may be in retreat, but in addition to that, Spanish is very much, I think, growing, certainly in the schools that I've ever had any association with. So I think it's very important, first of all, for children to learn a language. We had the option when we reviewed our curriculum. By the way, our curriculum is constantly under review. We consider it to be organic. You've never quite finished with your curriculum. Different children need different things all the time. So we decided when we were doing a major review 2 years ago that we wanted a language that we taught, and that we wanted to make sure the children were really good at it. So we could have done a bit of Spanish, a bit of French, a bit of Latin, and that would have taken up more space in the timetable, which put pressure on other subjects. But also we were concerned that would lead to children being a bit familiar with a few things, but not necessarily a master of one. So for the reasons that we believe that at senior level, Spanish is going to be universally very welcome in the boys and the girls settings at 11+. And secondly, we want them to be master of a language and not a jack of all trades. We have made the decision that we will focus on Spanish, and we will make the children as good as they can be by the time they're 11. That doesn't mean we're excluding the other languages, however, because what we've done is we've put in the French clubs and the Latin options into year 6. Things like that for the children to buy into, where they're really passionate about their languages. And we're just at this moment waiting for COVID to go by, but there's just a possibility, watch this space, there may soon be a Mandarin club.
I was going to ask. We were very impressed by the environmental clubs and activities, such as the Eco Warriors, and you're also involved with the Forest School, and it states Formula One club.
We're future facing.
In fact, I've just been contacted by the Formula One for the magazine. They're doing quite a lot with schools, aren't they?
It's growing. So I've known about them for about 4 or 5 years, and in fact, I'm going to be very modest and say that one of the 14-year-olds who approached me in my previous role, they approached me just to see if I would support a little group of them doing Formula One in schools, at that school. He last year went to UCL, and he did that on the back of coming 3rd in the world champions through through the development and design of his own Formula One vehicle and racing.
That's incredible.
So, I mean, it's a really outstanding engineering project. At primary prep level, it's obviously simpler, but it puts in place an understanding of physics, an understanding of all the things that are involved in design and the creativity around making something that you're going to race. It puts all that into the sphere of 9, 10, 11-year-olds. And these little vehicles that they make, which are probably about 10, 12 centimetres long, they're powered by compressed CO2 over a 24-metre track. So it's a really exciting project. I just wanted the children in my school, and you might say, well, there's a lot of girls at the top of your school. Well, yeah, girls need to think about being engineers as much as boys. And so that's where we've implemented this whilst we've still got girls just at the top of the school. And the idea is they can consider engineering and some grittier science, and not just the sort of generics of primary level science, through the Formula One in Schools Club. And project now, Forest School, yes, we've had that on the boil for a long time. I just believe in outdoor education, getting children outside, bug hunting, getting down and getting dirty, as it were, getting them on their knees and looking in the undergrowth and looking at leaves and how the world works. It's just absolutely wonderful. It's one of those things that the children will remember and they love. And I do remember a parent, it was quite a nice little comment a couple of years ago, the one parent who was around when we first introduced the Forest School. She said, I hadn't realised my child could learn so much and get so dirty at the same time. So it was just a very nice way of saying, do you know what, this has just opened my eyes to a completely new way that children can learn. But in terms of the environmental stuff, I mean, this is an example of why being a Catholic school can be helpful, because, the Pope many years ago, so it's about 4 years ago, published his document Laudato Si. And basically he wrote a letter to the whole world, and he just said, can we all be greater stewards of the world? Which is a beautiful bridge straight into all the environmental stuff. So he has a heart for the world. We have a heart for the world. We've got children who are working obviously towards various eco awards, and we try and give the children the opportunity to lead our push for awards. And why do we do awards? Just a really good way of focusing you in on achieving some very tangible things, so that you can really get the children thinking about the ways in which we can make a little bit of a difference. So we've been working towards awards using our Year 6 children to help lead that. We've installed a green wall with all of the children involved, and that is because we live in the city. We decided we wanted to bring some nature into the playground, but at the same time we also wanted to make a little statement. Is there anything we can do to improve life in the city? We all know in the city the air is not going to be quite the same as it would be if we lived in the middle of a rural setting. And is there anything we can do to improve the quality of the world that's around us? So we know our green wall isn't going to change London, but what we also know is the children now have in their mind, there are things you can do. We are not powerless. We can think in these ways. On top of that, we've been making eco bricks, and these are simply, if you're not aware, plastic bottles like a Pepsi bottle or something like that, or a drink bottle, and you stuff these, ram them full of single-use plastic. So all those wrappers around your loaf of bread, or those yogurt tops, or all those things that just go in a bit, you ram them in until this bottle is absolutely packed full of these, rock hard, and then you screw the lid on, you've got a brick. And you can build, in parts of the world, they build houses with these things. What we did with ours, so we've been doing that, getting people thinking about single-use plastic. And then what we've done with ours, the first thing we've done with ours, is we've asked a young artist who's literally just come out of college to be our sculptor in residence for a short while.
Oh wow!
And we've challenged her to make a sculpture of a dolphin with our bottles, which we've done. And it's now an installation in our playground. And it just simply says underneath, our single-use plastic is in our dolphin and not a real dolphin. So again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to just raise awareness in the minds of the children that our rubbish does have a bigger impact. And, there are things we can do in our own lives, in our own apartments, in our own houses and homes that do actually have a tangible effect in the broader world. So, with all these sorts of things coming together, the children are really engaged. And actually, without me saying anything to them, if I were to walk into year 6 and say, guys, what's the thing on your mind at the moment? They will say the environment. So I know this from last term, because I had the joy during the lockdown of our virtual sort of schooling that we had to do. I saw the year 6 a couple of times every week. And on Friday morning, we decided to make that our current affairs session. And the children were literally allowed to go away and find any story in the news where that caught their interest. And their job was then over the week to research it, put together a little PowerPoint, and then give a 10 or 15-minute presentation about the issue that they had on their mind. And invariably, it was the environment. They were interested in Greta Thunberg, they were interested in David Attenborough, they were interested in the oceans, they were interested in these matters. So it is right up there with the agenda for young.
A parent stated, we have finished week 1 of homeschooling, and I just wanted to say reception class was amazing. We have been impressed with how the school has stepped up to the challenge and is supporting children and parents with this new way of learning. Great videos, thank you all. It's a lovely quote from a reception parent. How did the teachers come up with innovative ways to engage the younger years?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have to take my hat off, and I'm very lucky. I've got such a fantastic team here. When the first lockdown was announced at Easter time last year, it was at the beginning of the Easter holiday, and without demur, the teachers pivoted from face-to-face understanding of how to do their job to a completely virtual world. And they used, without a moan or complaint or anything, it was just a case of, right, well, we need to do this. And they pivoted into a digital format. And that we decided that we would just use one of the generic carriers that you can get hold of. So we're not sitting here paying thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds for some clever virtual learning environment. We're just using something that's available to absolutely every school in the country. So the first thing is that the teacher's mindset has been, we've got to make this work and we want it to be the best. Now, I'm going to just mention one part of our provision from last summer, because I can't say that we did it this time, and that's because the nursery was online the first time, but the nursery was in school the second time. So even though the children were 3, my nursery team basically pivoted themselves into becoming a virtual CBBC presenting team. And they were running live and recorded lessons for the children all through that period. And that's for 3-year-olds. And obviously, it wasn't the whole day, because children won't sit still for that long at that age. But, they had their phonics delivered through little, if you like, podcasts. They had gatherings where they could talk about things. But literally, I was afraid that the BBC would be ringing me up and saying, listen, I think we've spotted our next presenters, let's have them. They did a fantastic job. But we've not been afraid of trying to get out there, because as far as I'm concerned, the children in reception, and now I'm talking about the spring this year, children in reception upwards, they come to this school, we want them to get the very best education they can through this period. So our mantra has been, it's got to be live. So we've had the children in class around the working day as much as we frankly can. So they come to school in the morning, even if it's in their home, and they go, they switch off at the end of the day at the time that they would normally switch off. And the teacher's with them all morning, and they're doing that English and they're doing that maths. And the teaching assistants are there, and they can have little breakout, individual one-to-ones, small groups, so that they can actually support anybody in the same way as they would in school, except for the fact that it's virtual. The specialist teachers, I'm one of those because I teach history. We've turned up and we've done our lessons in the same sort of way. We've engaged the children, we've learned how to put PowerPoint presentations out there, and we've learned how to embed videos so that you can find out exactly why Arkwright decided to build his factories in the middle of Derbyshire, for example. And so on and so forth. We've tried to make that virtual provision as normal as it would be. other than them not being in school. And I will say, what we have put on has not been without huge effort from the staff. And in the reception level, they've been really creative. They've had all sorts of little visits from different people. They've had little one-to-one sessions, which have been very creative to ensure that, the fonts, reading, and all those sorts of things are all maintained. So it's been very creatively put together. And I haven't had to dictate very much, because the staff have actually come to me and said, listen, we'd like to enhance this. Can we do this? Can we do that? And I just said, yes. Best job in the world when you can just say yes. But no, I think it's been really good. And I would contrast it with, what I know my own children have experienced. Now, I have a daughter who's just doing her GCSEs. And I know that a lot of the work that she's been given during the lockdown has been via an email. At the beginning of the week, we want you to do the following. Can you do this? And we'll touch base with you, at the end of the week to check you've done it. And I have to say that's disappointed me. And seeing that in the summer last year, I wasn't going to have that anywhere near here. We wanted to be out there. We wanted to be in the room with the children as best we could be. And just to say good morning to them, just to check they're okay, just to be able to talk through how you're feeling. All of that has all been sort of there as part of the package, simply because we've been there. It's difficult to know how you can ramp up much more without sort of, maybe changing some of the technologies that are available to is that the children in year 6, pandemic or not, still had their senior school admissions exams. And
that was going to be one of my questions. Just was it a challenge preparing them?
They've achieved record results. And it was definitely a challenge preparing them because you're probably aware in London, the 11 plus transition is very much a big thing. There is much pressure on families in any year because of the competition, around going to some of the senior schools, which are highly desired. This year, with very few weeks in advance notice, a lot of the assessment processes were changed. So the children weren't just preparing for the 11 plus, but they had to pivot themselves into different ways in which they would be assessed. I mean, it's all very understandable because, the pandemic, things had to be done differently. But the reality on the ground was that the children had a term of virtual learning, prior to year 6. And then they had been in school for the preparation term. But then, of course, the assessment process changed. So the acid test is how did they do? And they've achieved record results. Children going to some of the most hotly contested schools in London. So I'm just really, really proud of them. They've just done themselves proud.
A further question. Obviously things are improving rapidly, but it still is quite tricky for prospective parents.
Yes.
When are parents going to be able to attend to open days? And I assume you're laying on at the minute virtual open days everyone's having to do.
Yeah. I mean, actually, our next open morning, which is quite soon, we will be doing that virtually again. And so it is what it is at this stage. We are watching the announcements. We're aware that things are easing and things are getting easier, but we're also gently cautious, certainly during this term, I think. We do know that there are a few variants out there still, and I think we don't want to be rash and undo all the good work that has been done. As a school, the children have been in school. We've had very little disruption around the pandemic, so the measures that we've had in place seem to have done the trick, and we don't want that suddenly unravel. We're hoping that there might be opportunities and possibilities for us to have, what would I say, sensible and cautious
small groups
interaction in particular events. I don't want to commit to anything because obviously you probably know that just today Bolton and other places are now under the cosh again with the new variant coming in. So I don't want to sort of promise what I can't then deliver, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to make some sensible and cautious arrangements. And hopefully by autumn, things will be, I think, still cautious, but much, much more positive.
Yeah. And just to finish off, for parents thinking about St Christina's, I think it's a very difficult thing to generalise massively because every child's different. I think it's important that they stay so. But kind of, what would you describe as the qualities that you look for in children at the school?
Oh, I'm looking for creativity. I'm interested in intellectual curiosity. I just want children to ask questions, and I want them to find the answers. And I want to run alongside them, and I want the staff to run alongside them and try and keep up with, their hunger to find out more. I just want them. You could probably see from the Formula One in school that I want them to come to school, and I want them to think, oh, I could do that, and I could do that, and I could do that, and I could do that. It's about them finding themselves, really, and me not telling them what they are. It's really important. We talk about teaching and learning, but I would say the emphasis should be on learning. So in terms of the mindset from the children, I'm interested in them wanting to expand. So we have something called dirt time that we build into the teaching. Dirt time is directed, independent reflection time. So when children get some work back from me, maybe they've written a bit of history, and I will make a comment at the end, and the comment will be a little bit of a sandwich. So this went really, really well. To improve your work, you could consider doing this, and then just round off with another sort of positive. And then what we will do is we'll say to the children, have a look at my comments, have a look at your piece of work. Do you agree with my comments? And then how might you meet my challenge to improve? So they then look at their work and they say, oh, well, in order to do that, I could do this, this, and this. And then they just list the things that they think they can practically do to improve that piece of work if they were to do it again. So what we're doing through the dirt technique is we're saying to the children, you can always improve. Now tell me how, and I'll tell you how I think you can improve, and you can tell me how you think you can improve. So the children know what they're doing. And because they know what they're doing, they can improve. I mean, I'll give you a silly example, and I say this to my staff. I say, if I come and observe a lesson and afterwards I say, oh, I didn't really enjoy that lesson as much as I would have liked to, can you improve it for next time? And the teacher's likely to go to the staff room, scratch their head and say, I don't know why I didn't like it. How do I improve it? And they'll have to really think about that, and maybe they'll come up with the right thing, or maybe they won't. But if I were to say to the teacher, I came and saw your lesson, I really liked it, but I think it could have had a bit more pace. And I think the learning objective could have been a bit crisper and clearer, so all the children really knew what they were doing. Could you make sure that's in place the next time and come and see you? Then the teacher can go away and say, right, I need to get a bit more pace and I need to be clearer on my learning objective. They can put that in place. I go along and I think it's a wonderful lesson. It's the same with the children. It's not good enough just to say 8 out of 10. This is okay. Well done. Thanks for all your efforts. The child doesn't know how to get 10 out of 10. We need to walk with them. And so therefore it's not just the teaching that's important, it's actually the learning. And it's the whole skill set around learning that is so important. So in terms of qualities, I'm looking for learners who will be able to learn for the rest of their life. I'm looking for people who will not be afraid to have that conversation with somebody that's got a different idea or set of values. I'm looking for people who will be curious about how the world works around them, and they'll want to find answers. And I'm looking for people ultimately. I don't know if you've seen that lovely book that's come out during the pandemic by Charles McKeesey, but there's just a wonderful little picture that I'm thinking of turning into a wall decal and putting in the middle of the school. There's a little boy sitting on a branch of a tree. He's talking to mole, because it's all about mole. And the question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the answer is very simply, I want to be kind.
Oh, that's lovely. I think that's a lovely way to finish. Thank you so very much. I think I want to come to St Christina's now.
Oh, bless you. Well, look, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity just to talk about St Christina's. As you can probably tell, given the chance.
In your music cupboard.
Yeah, absolutely. I will talk all day.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed, and a huge thank you to Alastair for speaking to us and for such a brilliant interview. Stay tuned for more from the Education Corner and Education Choices magazine, coming very soon.